Hello and welcome to Monday night's edition of the State of Scottish Football here on A State of Mind. We are broadcasting live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn and Twitch. So we're absolutely everywhere and we are going to be everywhere for as long as we possibly can be, getting all your comments and your eyes on this content. We've loved having you and we're going to love having you for even longer. My name is Jack Donnelly. It's been a bit of an interesting weekend up here in Scotland. We've had some domestic and international action play out across both the men's and the women's game. So a fair few talking points for us to dive into. And that's why I'm joined by two of the finest of our esteemed team here at the State of Scottish Football. On my right, we have our resident Hibs, Struan Garvey. Struan, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Both my teams won at the weekend, being internationally and Hibs women. So very good weekend overall.
Fantastic. Very glad to hear it. And just down at the bottom there, our resident Don and Mr. David Smith. David, how are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thanks, Jack. As you can tell, we had a good victory at the weekend. Disappointment not scoring more, but I've got the Scotland top on and respect.
And respect, absolutely. Well, respect's a choice word, actually, considering what we're going to be talking about a bit later on. So I'll make sure to bring that back up in maybe 20-25 minutes or so. Of course, we did have a big win for Scotland at the weekend. We're going to get on to that just in a little bit and dissect that 1-0 victory over Moldova. But there's something that came out today in Scottish football that just needs attention. And it involves Highland League side Brecon City. For whatever reason that they've conjured up, they've unveiled a statue of William Wallace outside Glebe Park.
Was that who it is? Oh, I've been trying to figure that one out for all day.
I mean, looking at it, you could pick any day on the planet and you probably have a better guess at who it actually was than William Wallace. But I did a bit of digging. So it's officially called the Freedom Statue, and it's not been built for Brecon City. It's been brought out of storage. I'm not sure where one would build or store a statue of its ilk personally, but it actually used to reside in front of the Wallace Monument in Stirling. So definitely down your way, neck of the woods, Struan. But it was kind of targeted for about a decade or so by vandals and things, and it ended up just being sheltered and hidden away, ended up restored, and it's been fired at the front of Glebe Park because I think the original sculptor, a man called Tom Church, was from Brecon. So there's the link, if there is to be any sort of tangible connection between the club and the statue. But, I mean, it's just weird. It's just quite funny. He looks... I think it was more a depiction of Mel Gibson than actual William Wallace from the movie Braveheart, which was questionable in itself. But, I mean, David, when this came out today, I mean, what was your initial reaction? I mean, for me, I was just thinking, what is going on?
A fantastic marketing ploy, I must say. But apart from that, bizarre, different, and yeah, just extraordinary to say the least. I can't think of a better word, if I'm being honest.
I think it's just a classic moment in Scottish football. We kind of went a few days without something outrageous or ridiculous happening or something that we can just poke fun at. So Brecon City decided to step up and say, do you know what? We'll take a turn. We'll take a turn of this lagging and we'll put out a statue. I think you compared them more to Tim Martin, didn't you, David? In the
I noticed something on Twitter about it. When he was tagged in when Surrey was replying, they put up a photo of Tim Martin. It looked exactly the same.
I could see it, to be honest. I think I did see. I saw a photo of Tim Martin after, and I thought, you know what, that's not far away. That's not far away at all. Enough of the statue talk. Let's talk about the Scottish national team, the Scottish men's national team, because there were over 40,000 in Hampden on Saturday night, which, just before we even get into the game itself, Struan, 40,000 in a football stadium in Scotland for a national team game. It's absolutely fantastic to see those kind of numbers back again after.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, to be honest, to see that many people back, and I think it just shows how much we've been missing this. It's funny, I saw all the way throughout my timeline people saying this is my first Scotland game in 2 years, etc., and people who taught an army who would go every single game saying, it's been so long since they've last been. And you could tell even watching it from home that the atmosphere was incredible. A lot of people were saying that the rendition of Loch Lomond was one of the best they've ever seen. And I feel just across the world, to be honest, when we've seen fans returning to stadia, the atmospheres have been absolutely electric because it's been so long since people have been in. And I think Scotland, we've got some of the best fans in the world. And I'm not being biased when I say that, but I think it's absolutely incredible, to be honest. You know, just when you see the national anthem be sung out by the players as well, it was just great, to be honest, just to see. Even I watched the game from home, and it was just amazing.
David, you were also watching from home. Was that the same kind of thing for you? Did you kind of feel the atmosphere coming through your TV set when you were watching the game on Saturday night?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it was a terrific atmosphere all the same. I mean, disappointment in the park, but disappointment to the extent of the performance and the overall fact we didn't score more goals than we should have, with all due respect to Moldova. But it was a good 1-0 victory for Scotland, and it's good to get the 3 points, because, I mean, you look at like Austria slipping up against Israel, and you think about that before the game and go, that conclusion probably would never have happened. And we'll get on to it probably later on the show, but this is probably a good time to play Austria, just in the sense of they're in a bad way at this precise moment in time due to various things going on. But no, from a Scotland point of view, great to get fans back, and they definitely helped on Saturday evening. And it was a welcome victory for Steve Clark in a way, considering the results he's had in the past.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be one of those 40-odd thousand in Hampden Park. Had a lovely seat in F2 in the section, and I mean, it was something special, to be honest. I haven't been at Hampden since the Portugal friendly in 2018, just because I've found it quite difficult to get my hands on tickets and availability and things like that. But being able to be back for such a kind of big game, such an important game in terms of it being a must-win, it did feel special, and just kind of feeling that roar when the goal did go in was something really, really special. And it's the reason why I love kind of going to supporting Scotland, because you do get everyone behind the team, be it in a good way or a bad way. You can kind of have very, very similar reactions to things. I feel like as much as Scottish football fans are divided in terms of the domestic basis, when it comes to international tournaments, the majority do kind of tend to stick to the same arguments. They want to see some nicer free-flowing attacking football, and they want to see more goals, especially against a team that's ranked 175th in the world. But when that goal does come eventually, and it came after 14 minutes on Saturday night, everyone's just for that one moment just united in the fact that we can celebrate something together in a Scotland goal. And it's just really something special to be a part of that, as part of that crowd of 40-odd thousand. Let's get on to the game itself, because it was a win. It was a win for Scotland, as we've mentioned. London Dykes' 14th minute tap-in off Nathan Patterson, his saved shot fell to the Aussie come Scott. That was the difference against Moldova in front of that crowd. As you've alluded to, David, it was a win, but it wasn't really much more than that. It was fairly turgid watching, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to start this conversation by pointing towards Lyndon Dykes, because for the majority of the evening he was anonymous, but he scored that goal for Scotland. And I can't understand why Scotland fans have been saying on social media, giving constructive criticism to Lyndon Dykes, because, I mean, he was at times anonymous and he was at times not in the game. And I made the point to Amy Canavan on Thursday evening when I was on the State of Scottish Football show that Lyndon Dykes does a lot of hard work, but he also scores goals for you. Mm-hmm. He did one of the two. He scored a goal, but that was really it. He didn't do anything else apart from that, and that's the disappointing thing. But we've got to give a lot of gratitude to Lyndon Dykes, because he scored a goal which gives the Scotland all 3 points, and that's the most important thing. And I mean, a lot of the criticism that's came Scotland's way since Wednesday evening will probably be forgotten about if we can go and get a result in Austria, and any result for that matter tomorrow evening. But I mean, as back to Saturday, and you were watching the game, and it felt like, despite the atmosphere and despite the fact that it was quite noisy at Hampden Park, it did feel lame. It felt tepid. It felt quiet. And yeah, as much as it's a good win, there's lots to improve on moving forward. And the injury front isn't exactly exciting from a Scotland point of view as well, because, I mean, Nathan Patterson for me was outstanding on Saturday evening. He got a wee bit of stick, I noticed on social media, and I don't think it's unjustified, because, I mean, he was brilliant in terms of his desire to get the goal, just in the essence of winning the ball back, but also getting that initial shot in, which the goalkeeper saved before Lyndon Dykes tucked in. But I mean, we'll get on to it, but Austria's a winnable game considering their slipped up result against Israel at the weekend. And as I alluded to at the top of the show, it's a winnable game based on the fact they're not exactly in a good way at this precise moment in time. And it's been an interesting weekend in the results-wise, and we're in the type of group, Scotland, where teams are going to pick up points against each other, and we had to make sure we didn't have the capitulation of Kazakhstan Saturday evening, and we didn't. So that was the most important thing.
But Struan, was it the most important thing just coming into this game to get the win? I mean, we saw the starting lineup come out, and you and I were both saying in our group chat with a few pals that we liked it. We did like the starting lineup for what it was. I mean, it seemed to have that more of an attacking intent from the outset. Steve Clarke playing the likes of Patterson, playing Dykes and Nisbet up front, two kind of natural finishers in themselves. John McGinn back in the fold, of course. So kind of looking at it, was the main goal of the game just to win it? Or was it to go out and actually play some decent football at the same time? Because you can kind of look at it as a hollow victory, or you look at it a complete victory from depending on what your standpoint is.
You know, I think at the end of the day, and I think from Steve Clarke's point of view, you needed the 3 points. You know, we've already dropped points against Israel and Austria in this group. Fair enough, you're going to drop points to Denmark. They're absolutely fantastic, but you can't afford to drop points again to Moldova. And I was really excited by the lineup. I put it in so many group chats just because I was so happy when I first saw it, and just seeing players there, you know, particularly seeing Gilmore back in that sort of number 6 role where he can dictate tempo. He was unbelievable again against Moldova. Mm-hmm. Nathan Patterson finally getting the chance to call up there. Excellent. You know, we were sticking with the 3 at the back, but at the same time, Hendry and Hanley and Tierney, that's probably the back 3 I like the most, to be honest. So I was quite happy to see that. And then John McGinn back in the lineup as well. Kevin Nisbet up top. I was just really excited by it. But at the end of the day, it didn't really translate onto the pitch. You know, we did have a few opportunities that were missed. You know, Gilmore missed a chance, Robertson missed a chance. You know, there was the Tierney header that was well saved. You know, so I can't go after Steve Clarke. You know, he's not the one putting the ball in the back of the net. We need to be more clinical. But there were so many occasions in that game where I just felt bland. Just almost like I couldn't be bothered to watch, to be honest, because I thought, you know, this is Moldova. I was my dad and I were talking before the match. We were giving predictions, and I said 2-0, and I said, you know, I'm being a bit pessimistic, and even that was being optimistic. And then he said 5 or 6-0, to be honest, but that was just not anywhere near the result, and it was just overall just a bit of a lousy performance, I think is maybe the best way to say it. I mean, we've got 3 points at the end of the day, but actually watching the football, it was just difficult. And I think the fact as well that we scored after 15 minutes, that should have spurred us on. We should have gone on from there and gotten 2 or 3 before half time even, but we just never went for it. The subs again later on, a few questionable ones, taking Gilmore off and around between 60 and 70 minutes, I thought. I was so confused by that given how good he was in the game. So yeah, I'm obviously happy, but at the same time, there is that air of disappointment of just, if we play like that against a decent side, we're not going to score. And no disrespect to Moldova, of course, you know, they're not the worst side in the world, but at the same time, they're a side that Scotland should comfortably be beating.
No, absolutely. You need to reiterate that point. Moldova are no mugs, but I mean, looking at the kind of standings and the quality between the two teams on paper, you would absolutely think that Scotland would have got at least a few goals in this one. And David, you and Struan have both kind of touched on a bit of a lousy and a tepid performance, but it didn't really seem to be so in the opening kind of 10-15 minutes building up to the goal. Because, I mean, it was 2 seconds in before 2 minutes rather, before we'd actually carved out our first chance of the match. And that was probably at least 45 minutes before we'd managed to do the same against Denmark on Thursday night. So, I mean, there was that kind of sign of improvement that we kind of seemed to be going for it from the get-go. But, I mean, do you think potentially the goal came a little bit too early? And then once we had that and we got in at half-time, having missed a few chances, Clarke was just kind of saying to the lads, we just want to protect this one goal now, so just sit back, sit off, and then try and get something on the break. And that's where we saw maybe someone like John McGinn come into it a bit more in advance in the play. But I don't know, for me, the goal came a bit too early than what we would have wanted to had we wanted to see a fully enthralling and enticing game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, as you alluded to, we started the game very well, and we had chances in the early exchanges of the match, and we probably did score probably well too early, for being honest, because to start with, and you've raised a good point, in the opening 10, 15, 20 minutes, we started off very well and had the majority of the ball. We were on the front foot and finding channels very well. And Moldova were probably very relieved, and then it wasn't 1-0 within the opening half an hour or 35-minute mark. But then the second half, Steve Clarke changed the system, changed players, and ultimately it just resulted in Scotland just not top and dead. I don't think it's the right analogy, but just having a system where they just didn't want to, not that they didn't look interested, it's just that they didn't have urgency at the play. They didn't want to go for more, and that's that would have a frustrating thing from a fan's point of view. Because if people were asking the fans before the game, they'd have wanted a good performance, but also a good result. And for the fans, they'd have been wanting a 3-4 scoreline. But also, I'm quite relieved for somebody's bank account. Was it Kieran Ashton, Park Thistle fan? I'm quite relieved for his bank account as well, because I mean, from his point of view, had it been 5 or 6-0 Scotland, he'd have been wasting a lot of money. So he's probably the most fortunate Scotland fan there is right now. But no, from a Scotland point of view, it was massively frustrating. But, I mean, there's still a lot of positives, despite the fact that it was only 1-0. And I'll be deadly honest with you by saying, had this been an Alex McLeish team, funnily enough, we'd have all been scrambling and scraping the head off Alex McLeish right now, just in the essence of the style of football that Alex McLeish implemented. But because Scotland have done so well under Steve Clarke, the standard has dropped. Yes, it has, ever since the Euros, probably. However, there's another side of this that Steve Clarke's probably been a respected figure within the Scottish fans now, considering what he did in terms of getting us to our first national tournament in 21 years, yeah. So there's that side of it as well. So there's huge positives, but there's plenty of reflection to look over as well.
My mic's muted there. There we go. Did it again. Constantly doing it every week without fail. I'll end up muting my mic and forgetting to unmute it. But David, you're absolutely right in saying that there were some positives to take away, some huge positives. And Struan, let's talk about a couple of them just now, because I mean, for me, deservedly so, Billy Gilmour got another Man of the Match trophy. I mean, he's collecting these like match attacks at the moment. He just kind of seems to, every game he plays in, he'll pick up another wee trophy for a Man of the Match, and it made me really happy because I had. I was very close to the front. I was row Q of my section, not far away from the corner flag. And I'm an Ayrshire boy, as is Billy Gilmour. And I'm seeing him trot over. And that was the first time that he kind of played in front of fans barring the Euros. And he only really played in front of a handful at Wembley, of course, because he only played the one game. So it's kind of first time experiencing a Hampden atmosphere properly. And he's coming over to the side of the pitch and everyone's giving it properly big claps, and he's seen applauding the fans and everything. And that made me really, really happy for the kid. And he's taking these corners. He just put in such a good shift again in the midfield, and deservedly Man of the Match, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely fantastic, to be honest. I mean, anybody who gets Man of the Match against England on their international debut for Scotland is automatically a hero in my eyes. I think he was absolutely fantastic. And again, I feel what he's so good at is he can just control a game. You know, he can just slow things down. He can take the ball. Some of the passes that he was playing in that game were just so simple. He made them look simple, but they were very difficult. The way he was able to just break the lines, and he's always our link sort of in that middle to get the ball into the attack, and you can see the quality. You know, obviously at club level, prior to going on loan to Norwich, he was playing with some of the best midfielders in world football at Chelsea, and you can see how much that's going to have an impact on his game. You know, he's just so composed, and the fact that he was, I think, the second youngest player in that lineup after Nathan Patterson, you wouldn't think it. You know, he looks like he's got years of experience under his belt. And again, I believe this was only his second international cap since in the England game, or the third potentially. Is absolutely fantastic, to be honest. A deserved Man of the Match. I was screaming at the TV the fact that he was getting substituted off. I mean, I know we missed the chance, but at the same time, he's not the player who's supposed to be in that position. You know, he's not going to be your goal scorer. We can't expect him to do absolutely everything, because if he did, he would have been doing that as well. You know, taking corners as well, that's a massive responsibility. I mean, we know from the other side it'll be Robertson or Tierney, the left foot in swinger, but for Billy Gilmour to be taking them on the right hand side, I think it's just a massive compliment to how well he's been playing, and hopefully he'll be in the side for well over a decade. To be honest, he's one of those players who, you know, you can build a team around. We've really got a decent spine coming along to our national side, and I think he's one of the main reasons for that.
No, David Struan's right when he says we've got a decent spine coming through, and one player that's going to play a pretty big part in that on the right-hand side of the defence is Nathan Patterson. We've mentioned him a couple of times already, but I feel he did stand out, definitely, and I think while he might have kind of faded later into the game and kind of got a bit kind of worse off and was maybe not as good as he was earlier in the game, he certainly looked head and shoulders the best right-back option that we've got at our disposal at the moment in time.
You can understand if there's a level of question with regards to maturity at international level from Nathan Patterson's point of view, but there very much was international maturity from Nathan Patterson's point of view, because, I mean, he showed great tenacity to get up the park, but also he did the dirty work, which can't be undermined in terms of he did the defensive work, and his desire was second to none. I mean, a lot of players could take great example from Nathan Patterson just in terms of the way he played, but also the way he structured his approach as well. Just in the essence of he was solid the whole evening, but also his ability to get forward, and that was showcased when the goal was scored. I mean, he's been doing the same for Rangers. He's quite good with regards to doing the defensive work for both club and country. But he's also good with regards to getting up the park and helping opposition strikers or team strikers or team midfielders. And he's massive with that. He's not exactly. He's your Scottish version of a modern day right back, just in the sense of he's able to get up that park and provide attacking option, which we maybe don't have in other areas of the park. I mean, we've got exciting midfielders in terms of Billy Gilmore, and Stuart's raised a great point in terms of he had a great game on Saturday evening. He's shown that he's working in a good environment in England, playing in the Premier League, working with some of the best world-class midfielders in the world, such as N'Golo Kante, working with Kenny McLean at Norwich City. Kenny McLean's a class midfielder, in case none of you know. Patterson for me was fantastic on Saturday night. This injury situation or whatever have you has probably came at the worst time possible for Patterson. But I mean, he's had setbacks in the past. It's how you recover from this. He had a setback with the Rangers COVID situation. Plenty of people thought that was the end of his tenure at Ibrox at that point, considering he was a young player. But boy, has he went and solidified himself in the Rangers team, and he'll solidify himself in the Scotland team as well. I mean, Stephen O'Donnell now will be a shoo-in for Austria tomorrow night, but Stephen O'Donnell's only a shoo-in because he's pals with Steve Clark. Suppose that. He does defensive work, and that's all he's good at. He's a defender, right? You'll find the defenders, they're either ball playing or they're forward thinking. Stephen O'Donnell is defending, nothing else. It's old school, basically. And that's the fine line between Stephen O'Donnell and anything else. I mean, Wembley was a great example of that from Stephen O'Donnell's point of view. He defended the whole evening, and that was it. He didn't do anything else but defended the whole evening. That's why he's still in Jack Grealish's back pocket.
I think you make a few interesting points there. I mean, I do completely agree. I think you could definitely hear the Scotland fans getting behind Nathan Patterson. He was making a lot of kind of sliding challenges, getting into these hard tackles anytime he did. He was really successful in pulling them off, and he got a big cheer every time, certainly from where I was sitting anyway. So really good to see the kind of nation getting behind these young guys that are going to be kind of leading the country for, you imagine, the next decade or so. Struan, kind of talking about defensive solidity, again, I thought it was a really assured performance from Grant Hanley at the back, and I think that was kind of echoed, but one guy I didn't really see getting an awful lot of praise in this one was Jack Hendry, and I don't know if it was just where I was sitting and I was kind of seeing more of him on my side in the second half anyway, but I thought he had a pretty decent game. I mean, he didn't really contribute massively, and I think he was potentially overshadowed by Hanley having kind of input at both ends of the pitch. I mean, he kind of saw a couple of headers go off target from corners, but I think he was really good with the ball at his feet, getting himself at a couple of tight situations and sending a pass up the line. And I feel like he might have been overlooked for a bit of praise, because I feel like he is a player that does have a mistake in him, and it's just kind of watching him with a bit of nervous anticipation over whether he's just going to chuck one down and then it all falls to pot. But I don't know, I thought across the back line it was just another assured defensive performance, and considering it had to be in the later stages of the game, I think that shouldn't go understated at all.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I think it was really important for Grant Hanley to have a good game as well. After we saw against Denmark, he was sort of at fault for one of the goals, and I think a lot of people were starting to question whether he was right not to be in the centre of the defence. But we saw him against Moldova. He was just really controlling there. And I feel for me, Jack Hendry needs to be one of our regular centre halves. You know, he's got a big, massive move to Club Brugge. He's going to be one of the few players in the team who's now going to be playing Champions League football, playing at a really high level. I think for me, he has to be in the team. I think he performs well as I mentioned previously on the show. I think the back three that we played against Moldova, if we're going to be playing a back three, that's probably my favourite one. Just those three individuals, and probably my favourite back five, actually, including the wing backs as well, to be honest. And I feel this was sort of a game where you don't want to notice your defenders. You know, we shouldn't be noticing what our defenders do, because we should be the team on the front foot. You know, it should be our attackers that we're talking about and praising. But as we've said here, the defenders were some of the best players on the pitch for us, and I feel hopefully not getting much praise is potentially a good thing for Jack Hendry. The fact that he's just been out there giving it a solid 6 or 7 out of 10 performance. Nobody really needs to bat an eyelid, and we're just moving on. And hopefully in the future we can just sort of expect that. You know, if we can make a good performance his standard, then we're in for a real treat defensively.
No, absolutely. Completely agree. I feel like it could really kind of play into his favour, the fact that he's not recouping a lot of the praise, because that's rightfully going for the likes of Gilmore, Patterson and Hanley, and he can just kind of slide under the radar and kind of keep putting in a few decent shifts defensively. David, let's talk about a couple of the negatives around this game, because while defence was an important thing and something that we needed to do, especially later on, it didn't need to be, because we could have had a couple more goals in this game. And a couple of them came from set piece in the form of Hanley headers. Gilmore had a really good chance himself, put it just wide of the bottom right. But one of the kind of more wasteful players in this match for me was the captain, Andy Robertson. I mean, him and Tierney were good, working themselves down the left again, getting some good balls in and contributing to the attack. But there were a couple of chances that Robertson, had he kept his shot down, he would have tested the keeper at least, if not having actually scored the goals.
Yeah, Robertson's one of them type of players, and we've seen it in the Euros quite a few times as well, where Robertson would just shoot from 30 yards, where the better option might have been to play a ball and try and create an opening within itself. I understand the terminology or the analogy of if you don't shoot, you don't score kind of thing, but there's the other side to that where there's the try to create an opening. And if you sometimes the better option is to go and create an opening, and that's the thing from Andy Robertson's point of view. But I mean, Andy Robertson as a whole would be happy to get a clean sheet in his 50th appearance for the country, and that's the thing. He has had some wasteful opportunities, not just on Saturday evening, but also for some other games for Scotland. And but also, people have to remember he's been a solid captain for this country. But there's loads that he can go and work on moving forward as well. Because I mean, being Scotland captain is not just about being a leader; it's about making sure you're still got the capabilities as a footballer as well. I mean, he's playing at the very highest level in England. He's got to be a leader for me, and that's the most important thing. I just want to go back on to Jack Hendry, and I noticed a comment in here by Ian McIntosh says a bit of a Paul Lambert situation, and I do agree with what Ian's saying there, because I mean, he's not really appreciated at home in terms of Celtic and Scotland, but he's kind of proved himself abroad, and Lambert proved himself at Dortmund back in the day, and that's the same with Jack Hendry. He's pulling out wonders in Belgium, and that's the thing. Sometimes moving to another country can be a massive benefit, and that's what's proved to be for Jack Hendry's point of view. It was the same for Robertson when he joined Hull initially and then went to Liverpool. It was the same for Robertson's point of view. But I mean, Robertson will just be happy to get the bit through the weekend, but he needs to stop shooting from 30 yards, that's for sure.
Oh, well, I scored a couple of belters from that kind of range before. It's just
of
that. But I like your point kind of from you and Ian both kind of talking about the Paul Lambert situation. Will we see Jack Hendry lift a Champions League trophy? I'm not entirely sure. But, I mean, if Jack Hendry can go away and do it, hopefully Lawrence Shankland can do the same. That is, of course, the United fan coming out, as it always does. Struan, other end of the pitch, though, Kevin Nisbet probably didn't have his best game. I think that's more than fair to say. I don't know if that was just me, but I feel like he and Dykes just can't work in the same team, because I feel like they're very, very similar types of players. They're players that are just going to be there to receive the final ball and not really do any of the legwork and the creativity leading up to it. I don't know if you can kind of comment more on that from the Hibs point of view, probably having seen this, but a lot more than myself. But I feel like they were just making a lot of the same runs early in the first half, and they were getting caught up. Nisbet would kind of receive the ball and not really know what to do with it because he was having to come deep for it. I think partially that was lacking because we were playing McGinn further back and Christie further forward, who I thought was quite anonymous. He didn't really contribute an awful lot, did Ryan Christie, but really wasn't a smart showing from Kevin Nisbet on the night.
No, I think your Christie point is actually spot on as well. You know, I've been trying to remember who the other midfielder was in our three. It was Christie. It was anonymous nearly. But yeah, Nisbet didn't have the best of games. You know, I think his link-up play was quite good. He had a hand in the first goal. He sort of played Patterson in, and I feel that was kind of his role for Scotland, was he was the one who was supposed to be creating, but I don't think that's his game. I think you want him to be the man in the box. You know, we've seen a few times this season anyway, Hibs have played with a front three with Boyle and Murphy either side. So for Nisbet sort of shift into a two, you know, it can be quite big for different strikers, you know, when you think of if they're playing as a two quite a lot and then they suddenly switch to a three. And I think one thing that we've had with Scotland is I don't know if we ever play the same two up front 2 games in a row. You know, a lot of people have spoken about how Dykes and Adams could be the perfect partnership, but so often we've seen Fraser, we've seen Forrest, we've seen Christie, we've seen Nisbet all sort of thrown into there, and we just keep mixing it up. And I still don't think we've found that blend up front, you know, the perfect team who can work that out. But I think equally, as a team, we're just not creating enough chances. You know, going back to that Robertson chance that he missed, you could play across as well. You know, you could try and pick out the pass at the back post, but it goes for Glory himself, and then obviously skies it quite badly. But we're just not really creating those chances for our strikers. I think John McGinn is our top goal scorer under Steve Clark.
Yep,
and
10 goals.
Thinking back to the bicycle kick against Austria and the other hat trick that he scored, it shouldn't necessarily be a midfielder who's the top goal scorer. It should be one of our strikers should be competing against each other. The fact that we're playing two strikers up front as well, you'd hope that at least one of them on regular occasion would be the top scorer for the team, but we just don't feed them with enough service in my opinion. But to your original point, I don't think it was the best game for Nisbet at all, to be honest. But at the same time, I almost want another striker to get called up into the team, but I don't know who I'd like that striker to be. Obviously, we've seen it, you mentioned 2 minutes ago, Lawrence Shankland as well. He's had opportunities in the Scotland team, but it's not quite worked out for him. And David was saying, and rightly so, Lyndon Dykes is quite a divisive figure in the Scotland team because quite often he'll be anonymous throughout a game. He'll maybe come up with a goal as we saw at the weekend, but sometimes he does that hard work, but that's never really appreciated as such on social media unless you get a goal. But even then, at the end of the day, he's not scoring as regular. He's in a really good patch of form for QPR at the moment, but it's not always translating onto the pitch. And after that goal, he sort of faded out of the game. I very much think he's just sort of a target that we have, somebody who can just hit the ball long to just give us an out point, basically. But it's not always working. So it's a really difficult choice for Steve Clark, really, to get that situation sorted. I mean, going back to the Serbia game, Lee Griffiths was still part of the team. People have been calling for the likes of Jason Cummings to get a call up. I've seen all sorts of names who you just wouldn't think would be anywhere near the Scotland squad getting mentioned because nobody seems to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think that could be a real problem going forward for games like Moldova where we just keep missing chances.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Scotland call-up, Struan, because there has been another one just today coming out. You predicted in a group chat that if you were Scotland manager, you'd be giving all your time to Ryan Porteous, Paul McGinn and Paul Hanlon for call-ups. One of the three... And Josh Doig, my mistake, sorry. One of the three has made it into this Scotland camp for our final game against Austria tomorrow night, and this is our kind of section. We're going to be talking about that update and giving a little bit of a preview of tomorrow night's opponents. Paul McGinn has been called up to the Scotland team for tomorrow night's game. We've had to say goodbye to Nathan Patterson. Unfortunately, we don't entirely know the situation with him, whether it's injury or whether he's just been recalled or something like that. You would imagine it's something that's happened in training. He's maybe taken a knock. Ryan Fraser's also gone. He actually was seen leaving on crutches on Saturday night, so really, really not looking too good for him. And Kenny McLean has also been dropped. He's also had to take his leave from the squad. I don't know how to take to this, to be quite honest, lads. Paul McGinn coming in to replace Nathan Patterson is not an upgrade in any way, shape or form. And David, to me, it almost just kind of cements the fact that Stephen O'Donnell will be playing right back or right wing back tomorrow night against Austria, which it's going to limit our attacking game plan in a back five to just going directly down the left-hand side once again.
Yeah, Stephen O'Donnell will be assured for tomorrow night. I mean, the guys in a silk state of mind were speaking at the top of their respective show. Paul John Dykes asked a question to Amy Canavan with regards to Anthony Ralston, but I can kind of understand about Amy's point, just in the sense of why Anthony Ralston wasn't called up, just in the sense that Steve Clark doesn't know Ralston. But for me, there's better options than McGinn, and that's no being disrespectful to McGinn when I say this, but I do feel there's better options in the sense of Sean Rooney and Anthony Ralston. I mean, Sean Rooney had a tremendous season with St Johnstone last term, and he's had a solid start to this season. There's been plenty of admirers for Sean Rooney from Scotland fans, but there just hasn't been that urgency or requirement from Steve Clark to get him in. But I mean, Stephen O'Donnell will be assured. There's no guarantee about that. There's guarantee about it, beg your pardon. But for Paul McGinn's point of view, I mean, full credit to Paul McGinn because he came in late last night, got COVID tested, and then within a short space of time, he's travelled up to Austria to take part in the Scotland squad, and that's the thing. And I'm noticing a comment by Daniel MC, noticing Cammy Kerr. Cammy Kerr's a good right back, but he just isn't Scotland standard, unfortunately. But no, I'm impressed with Cameron Kerr, Daniel. Don't you worry, mate. But back on your original point with regards to McGinn, he'll probably just be there just to warm the bench tomorrow night, if we're being honest. Because I mean, the starting lineup from a Scotland point of view is probably pretty much sorted. Maybe just the permutations of Stephen O'Donnell coming in, but apart from that, it'll be pretty much probably the same as Saturday evening against Moldova.
Struan, David makes a point about McGinn coming in just playing backup, but do you think it is just to kind of plug that gap? Because you would argue that even someone like Tony Ralston, Sean Rooney, I mean, you would argue Calvin Ramsey in the same kind of position if he wasn't already with the under-21s. They would almost be kind of warranting a call-up more. Sorry, getting tripped over my words there. But do you think he's going to go in for that just kind of familiar face? I mean, we've seen McGinn in a couple of camps already. And I mean, obviously, John's in there as well, so he's got the kind of family link as well. So, I mean, do you think it is just for that sense of familiarity that he's gone from McGinn over someone like Ralston?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've made multiple points on this multiple times. This show Stephen O'Donnell is definitely going to be playing. There's absolutely no doubt about that in my mind, or I don't think anyone's mind. And for that reason, it would almost be a bit harsh, I guess, to call up Sean Rooney, Tony Ralston, Calvin Ramsey, any of these, Cameron Kerr, any of these right backs in, because they'd just be playing second fiddle anyway, and you'd only be coming for about like 3 or 4 days at maximum before you return to club level. But obviously, someone like Paul McGinn, he's been in the Scotland team before. He's happy to be there. I think his versatility is possibly another thing to mention. He can play in a back three on the right hand side. He's done that on several occasions for Hibs. So if worse comes to worse, he can do it for the national team as well. I'd personally like to have seen Tony Ralston. At the end of last season, start of this season, I don't think he's a player I ever would have even considered for the Scotland national team. But the way he started the season for Celtic, playing really, really tough games, really high intensity games at such a high level, I think he's definitely an option for the national team. But again, it's possibly a bit too early for him. Sean Rooney, again, he knows the system. He's played wing back quite a lot for St Johnstone. He's possibly one who would know how to play it. But I think at this point in time, the right call possibly is Paul McGinn, just because, as I previously mentioned, you're only going to be on the bench. So it would be a bit harsh potentially to call up a youngster to train with the squad for 1 or 2 days and then suddenly just return back to the club level. Whereas somebody like Paul McGinn, he's 30 now. He's vice captain of Hibs at this point. He's an experienced player. He'll be happy to just sort of be there with the team, good presence in the dressing room to just get people going. And as I said, he's got a wee family link there as well to John McGinn. So I can understand this call up. Had it been at the start when the team was initially announced, I would have been very annoyed, even from a Hibs point of view, because I'd like to see more right backs included in this one. And I think it's such a shame for Nathan Patterson, because as we said, after Billy Gilmore, I think he was my man of the match. He didn't have the best game across the 90 minutes, but he was effective. He's the reason we scored our goal. And we haven't really had that from Stephen O'Donnell as such, to be an attacking threat on the right hand side. To have Nathan Patterson doing that, I think was absolutely massive. So it's such a shame that his injuries come in just before such a big game. But at the same time, I think people now know he should be the number one going forward. I think he sort of proved that he can do it. For a few doubters who said, is he maybe not good enough for Scotland yet, including Steve Clarke. I hope he now knows that he's the one who should be starting ahead of Stephen O'Donnell. And then perhaps in the next national selection, we see Tony Ralston, we see Calvin Ramsey, we see Sean Rooney. Hopefully we see new faces at that point. But for the current team, I can understand why Paul McGinn got called up. And it sort of reminds me of when Paul Hanlon got the call up in our international camp before the Euros. The fact that he's not going to be playing any games, so potentially it's the wrong time to give the youngster a shout. Give somebody like Paul Hanlon, an experienced player, just give him time with the national team. To be honest, it's a great honour to be called up for the team, and even if you do make 3 or 4 minutes off the bench, because I can see that happening. If we do have a lead, touch wood, I'd love to have a lead against Austria. If we're leading with 5, 6, 10 minutes to go, Paul McGinn's the perfect player to just sort of bring on in that back five somewhere and just calm the defence down and take the pressure off.
No, we're getting a fair few comments just regarding the right back situation. Paul Cockwell, he's coming in saying he's a better player, simple. I'd imagine he's talking about Mr. McGinn with that one. Personally, Paul, I don't agree, but that could just be the fact that I don't watch an awful lot of Paul McGinn, but I'll completely take your opinion.
Very consistent is Paul McGinn. That's what I would say.
That's the one thing I've heard. He is a very consistent presence. Ian McIntosh saying, actually happy Tony wasn't picked. Selfishly want him saving his energy for the hoops. An interesting comment considering the signing of Josip Juranovic. You would potentially think he might start over Tony Ralston, but depending on the patch of form and what's happening with Greg Taylor, of course, we saw Juranovic playing left back in the Old Firm match. Could be an interesting way to see the Celtic defence step up. And Daniel Mack making his claim for Cammy Kerr. Once met him in the Hive in Edinburgh. That's the only reason he wants him in the team. And I can fully respect that. I think if I was to walk in to Hive in Edinburgh on a student night and see a Scotland potential international in there, I would absolutely be campaigning for them to be in the national setup as well, Daniel. David, let's look ahead to tomorrow's opponents. Let's look at Austria themselves. I mean, they're coming into this one conceding 5 goals to Israel, which is just something you never would have expected going into Saturday's games. And does that fill you with a bit of confidence that we could go out and get something tomorrow night?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Austria, to my understanding, are in a very bad way at this precise moment in time, just with the fact that they had a very disappointing result from their own regard against Israel on Saturday evening. I felt the Austrian manager was a little bit disrespectful in this pre-match comments related to this game coming up tomorrow night. I don't know if he's read it, but I noticed in the Daily Record he was claiming Scotland were long ball tacticians, which I don't think is the right terminology or the right context to be using with regards to Scotland. Yeah, we do like a wee punt up the park, but it's not to the extent of what we've been used to previously. So I felt it was a little bit disrespectful from the Austrian manager, if I'm being brutally honest with you. But looking at the tomorrow night, Austria still have quality players. They've got Sabitzer, who's at Bayern.
I think he's injured, David, actually. I think Sabitzer's not going to be involved. He wasn't involved on Saturday. I think he's going to be out for this game as well, which is a bonus.
Okay, well, that's a bonus indeed, because I mean, I'm a big fan of Sabitzer, and they've got Abada, have
they? Abada? Do you mean Alaba? You're thinking Abada for Israel?
Sorry.
I think, he was playing on the left-hand side of the back five.
Yeah, they still have quality, and I mean, people forget that they took out like extra time a few months ago in the Euros, so they definitely have quality throughout their team, but not having Sabitzer is a major bonus from a Scotland point of view. But look ahead to tomorrow night. They're there for the taking, and that's the bottom line here. I mean, we've played Austria in the past, beg your pardon. We've gave them a really good game, and I mean we've got an opportunity to give Austria a really good game here. And I mean, if we can go and win this game tomorrow night, it has an edge between us and Austria, just in the sense of the league table, and it'll be massive heading at the business end of the World Cup qualifying stage. Because I mean, for Scotland to qualify for the World Cup would be a massive thing for me, because, and not just for me, a massive thing for other people as well. Because I mean, probably the majority of us have never qualified for a World Cup in our lifetime. Probably 1998 when I was 3 years old. Apart from that, there's hardly been anything apart from the recent Euros. But I mean, Austria set up in a 3-4-3 formation at the weekend, and I mean, it works, but it doesn't work at the same time. I mean, it works just in the aspect of you can play an attacking philosophy. I mean, we'll get on to it at the end of the show, but it's kind of similar to the way Celtic women's played yesterday against Aberdeen, just that formation. But on Austria, the 3-4-3 works, but it also leaves you exposed as well. You've got the Hinteregger, Dragovic, and Posh at the back, and for me, they're far too open and expansive. And I feel we've got opportunities there if we can get Dykes up and running, and he's not the anonymous figure that he was on Saturday evening. You've also got Alba, Grilic, if that's pronounced right, Weimer and McGinn, who are decent, but they're not Sabitzer level, and that's the bottom line here. For international football, you need a good grafter, but you also need players that can provide a bit of quality about you, and Austria don't have that at this precise moment in time. Obviously, everybody knows Austrian football knows, but Arnautovic, brilliant striker, scores goals for fun. And he scored another one at the weekend. And Baumgartner, for me, he scored a brace at the weekend. And he's been doing very well for Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga and scored a brace the other night. So he'll be a threat from a Scotland point of view. But as much as Scotland will be a threat moving forward, if we can get the defensive system right, I think we've got a chance of going and winning this game, or at least getting a point tomorrow night.
You've mentioned a couple of players. There's one other I just want to mention from this Austria team. He's 6'6", but every time he plays against you, it feels like he's 12'12". Sasa Kaladzic, I think I've said that name right. Of course, scored both goals against us in the reverse fixture, the 2-2 draw. Scored a goal late on against Italy in extra time that had them a bit nervy in their match in the knockout stages of the Euros. So he's going to pose a real threat if he does come on or does indeed start tomorrow night, and I can guarantee that's going to be the case if he does play. We're going to be worried about balls into his lofty head, I suppose you could call it. Stuart, just touching on this game, I want to touch on the mentality of it, because coming into this one, we have a massive opportunity to really kind of leapfrog Austria and kind of leave them in our dust a little bit, and then just need to beat Israel to get ourselves back into second. Kind of leading up to this one today, don't have me massively encouraged that we're going to go for a win. I think Cal McGregor, speaking to the press today, he was saying that they're setting up, and it's a must-not-lose game rather than a must-win, which has me really, really concerned that we're going to give them far too much respect again and go for another draw. because that's the one thing that I feel like we completely failed to capitalise on in the reverse fixture. They were there for the taking, Austria. We saw that early on in the first half in our game against them in the 2-2, and we just gave them far too much respect. We weren't looking to be as ruthless as we potentially could be, but and that was to our detriment, and they ended up taking the lead twice, thankfully. Hanley and McGinn got us back into the game and got us a point from it. And Paul Cotwell coming in saying, we need a win. And I completely agree with him. There's nothing short of it. We absolutely need to get a win. And it's just a bit demoralising to see the comments coming out of the camp and saying that it's a must not lose rather than a must win.
Yeah, that to me just screams we're playing for a draw. If you're not worried about not winning the game, then you're happy with a point. It's almost as if it's a two-legged affair and you've won the first one 3-0. So we just don't need to lose. As long as we get a draw, we're through to the next round. But that's not what this is at all. And I think a lot of people are now starting to question the mentality of the squad. Cal McGregor, I think he's an excellent player. He really is. I think he's done so well this season as the Celtic captain. But just to say something like that, I feel that just worries me a little bit from our point of view. We need to beat Austria. They were beaten 5-2 by Israel, who we've not actually beaten in normal time either, Israel, yet, but under Steve Clarke, that is. But if they can score 5 past them, surely we can as well. I don't think Israel are a much better team than us, if at all. I think we need to say, if they've done it, we can do that too. Not, we'll try and play for a draw, because I know it's in Austria. I know it's in Vienna, I believe. That doesn't mean we can just, we'll take a point because we're the away team. We've already messed up the first game against Austria. We can't afford to drop more points in this game. And that, to me, really does worry me, the fact that we're going to just, as you said, we're going to potentially set off and try and catch them on the counter-attack, because I don't think that's exactly the best way that we can play. I think they're there to be got at. As David pointed out, they've not got Sabitzer, who's their best player in my opinion, who's just made a big move to Bayern Munich. That's a massive bonus for us. Obviously, you don't wish injury on any player, but the fact that he's not there for Austria, it's absolutely huge for Scotland. I think him and Gilmour would have had quite an interesting battle in the midfield, but I mean, Gilmour's going to win that now, obviously. I'd hope anyway. But it's a really difficult one. I'm not sure with Alaba. I've never really rated him as a centre half at Bayern Munich. I never thought that was his best role. I think he's much better where he can influence the game. We saw that a few times during the Euros, where taking corners, he was absolutely incredible, because his range of passing is absolutely excellent. Yeah, and I feel, as you mentioned, the striker, that's a combo that I'm terrified of. Alaba swinging an inch perfect ball to meet him, to just knock it past Craig Gordon, and 1-0 in the 90th minute or something like that, because we've sat off and we've not been fussed about it. But it definitely does worry me. They've got some danger man across the pitch, but so do we. We've got good players as well. I don't think we need to be worried. If Sabitzer was there, I'd be terrified. I mean, just watch a 5-minute highlight of him on YouTube and you'll think he's the best player in the world. The outrageous long shots that he can score are absolutely ridiculous. He's such a talented player, to be honest. And he's one of those who, when he gets the ball even outside of the box, you're terrified because of how accurate his ability is. And thankfully, he's not going to be there for us to have to worry about that. And I think as well, we need to take that momentum and say, look, they're without their best player. If there's ever a time you want to play Austria in Vienna, it's got to be now. We need to win this game. Yeah, we've had a few call-offs ourselves, but we've still got a really good group of players there. We've still got a lot of danger men. Other than the right-back situation, I think our team's going to be near enough the exact same against Moldova. I'm not sure what Robertson's injury situation was after he came off. Hopefully, he's going to be okay. But yeah, this is a game we have to go for. Austria are a good team. As you said, they took Italy to extra time in the Euros. They look decent, but at the same time, we need to tell ourselves we're a good team. We can't be saying, "Oh, well, we'll try and get a point. We'll try and get a draw here." It's not a must-win game. It's a must-not-lose game. It is a must-win game. We can't afford to sit back or anything. We have to win this game. No question in my mind.
No question in my mind either, mate. And I feel like it's going to be a lot of kind of negative comments thrown Steve Clarke's way if we do play negatively and we don't look to win the game at all. We do have another topic to cover, and we've only got about 10 minutes to do so. But what I want to get from both of you is your preferred starting 11 for tomorrow night, and the scoreline, your predicted scoreline of how we potentially should go and win a game. David, who is in your starting 11 for tomorrow night, if you've thought that far ahead just yet?
Well, I'll give you my preferred start 11, but I'm going to change it and give you the start 11 that I think will take part tomorrow night.
Okay.
Gordon in goals. We'll play the usual formation of 3 across the back, the 2 wing backs. So I'm going to go for O'Donnell, Shewan at the right. The 3 will be Hendry, Tierney, and Hanley. The 1 on the left will be Robertson. The 3 across the middle. Yeah, is that right? 3 across the middle. I knew I lost you there. 3 across the middle. Go for Gilmour, I've forgotten his name now. Gilmore. No. I was ready to tell you McTominay there. Gilmore.
I wish.
Hold on, it'll come to me. Gilmore.
McGinn, McGregor.
That's sorry. Brave Rose there. Thank you very much, Jack.
There you go.
McGinn and McGregor. And up front, I'd like to see Steve Clark play the two again, because I mean the two players for me are the preferred option for Scotland. Fans get frustrated if you only play one up top. So Dykes and probably go for good question with regards to the other striker. Go for, off the top of my head, probably, well, I've mentioned Dykes. We'll probably go for, that's the thing, and Stu's raised a good point. Probably Nisbet and Dykes can't play well together, but being honest and being Steve Clark, I could see him only making one change to her in the sense of Stephen O'Donnell, so I'm going to go for Nisbet to continue up front.
Fair enough. Stu, and how about yourself? How do you see, or what do you want to see us lining up with tomorrow night?
Well, I was going to come away with the back four formation, because that's what I personally would like Scotland to play. But I've just been thinking, I don't think we have wingers left. I think Christie is potentially the only player in the squad who's actually going to be able to play out wide with Fraser and Forrest, unless we play Christie on the right and Robertson on the left-hand side. But I think what I'd like to see would be Craig Gordon in goal. I still think he's our best goalkeeper, to be honest. A back three, just as the back five is exactly the same as David said it. If we were to go to a back four, though, I'd play Tierney as my left back. Okay. I think recently he's been absolutely excellent. And if we have to keep Robertson in the team, I'd push him up front. Three across the midfield, I'd like to see Gilmore. He has to keep his place. At the moment, I think he's got to be there. In the future, I'd love to see Gilmore, McGinn and McTominay as our midfield three. I think that could work so well, to be honest, with McGinn going forward, Gilmore holding and McTominay being the box-to-box. But at the moment, I would have McGinn, Gilmore and McGregor. Okay. I don't actually know why McGregor was necessarily dropped for the other game, but Christie did absolutely nothing in an attacking sense, so I'd keep them two. And then, as much as it pains me to drop Nisbet, I think I'd stick with Che Adams and Lyndon Dykes up top. I feel that Che Adams is possibly one of those who's going to get you a goal out of nothing, and I feel that's potentially how we're going to be playing this game. And if we are going to be sitting back, Lyndon Dykes gives us that out ball. It gives Craig Gordon somebody to aim at. It gives Billy Gilmore someone to aim at as well from the midfield if we need to relieve the pressure. Just somebody like Lyndon Dykes up top. And I think Christie could be effective off the bench if we need to score a goal as well.
I'm pretty much going to agree with basically exactly what you've said there, Stuart. I've got Gordon in goal, sticking with the back five, and it's the back five that the pair of you have mentioned, O'Donnell and Robertson on the left and right, and Tierney, Hanley and Hendry across the middle. I think if we were to go to a back four, though, I would play Robertson deeper, and I would play Tierney further up, because I feel like he is constantly going to be buzzing about that area anyway. We've seen it a lot for Arsenal this season, even though they haven't really been scoring goals. He's been constantly in and about that left-hand flank up high on the left anyway. So I feel like he would potentially lend himself a bit better being the further forward of the two. We see him overlapping Robertson that many times anyway, so it wouldn't really be all too different to see him advanced past his captain. But midfield, I would have McGregor and Gilmore sitting, as you said, have McGinn in that number 10. I feel like we really lacked his presence in the number 10 role. As I said earlier, Chris was a bit anonymous. And as you saw the game progress, McGinn would be the one that would pick it up maybe 10 yards inside our own half and then drive it on and look to kind of use his body to get round an opponent and drive the ball forward. So I feel like having him in that role from the start would help us massively. And then it's Dykes again and one of Christie or Adams. I feel like I'd potentially look to start Christie over Adams. I feel like he could also do that job of dropping in and linking up well with Dykes up front. I mean, obviously they worked very well together in Serbia. I don't want to be that as the only focal point that we can refer back to, considering that's probably our only kind of positive result in the last year or so. But you just think Dykes was really the workhorse in that game. I mean, he didn't really do much in terms of creating, but he worked his socks off, and Christie obviously got the goal that saw us go to extra time in the end. But I feel like Adams coming off the bench with that injection of his pace is going to do wonders against what could hopefully be a tired Austrian backline tomorrow. So we're all hoping for a win. And we hope it does come to fruition. Now, away from the Scotland men's national team, we're going to be taking a look to round out the show. Of course, this was the first weekend that we saw the return of the SWPL 1 and 2. We're just going to be talking about the SWPL 1 results today. We were all at a game. We all took in a game this weekend. David saw Aberdeen, their first game in the top flight this season, take on Celtic at home, while Struan and I were both at the Tony Macaroni Arena in Livingston with our media duties for Hibs women as they took on Spartans. Struan, should we start with Hibs? When
Go on,
a little bit of a derby, go on. We might as well. It was a perfect start to life for Hibs in this SWPL 1 season, winning 3-0 against former ground share opponents Spartans in Livingston. Goals coming from Alexa Coyle, new American striker, via way of a penalty. Colette Kavanagh with a lovely volley in off the left-hand side of the post. And Michaela McAloney, former Spartans player, scoring against her own club in her first appearance of the league season. Struan, it was just quite a dominant performance from Hibs on Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah, as you said, it was the perfect start for Hibs. They were absolutely incredible. The first half was a bit difficult. I think there were 3 separate head injury issues, so that was a bit concerning watching on from the stands. You never like to see head injuries on a pitch, but it was the absolute perfect start for Hibs. Penalty within 5 minutes, converted it. Alexa Coyle, first league appearance for Hibs, came in from the summer, as you said, scored a goal as well. Absolutely perfect start. And Michaela McAloney, who was absolutely excellent throughout the game as well, scoring against her old club. And Colette Kavanagh, who ended up getting player of the match as well. She was absolutely excellent on the left-hand side. So, yeah, it was one of those performances that you just can't really fault. Spartans didn't have too many clear-cut opportunities. They were played through right at the end, but they missed their chance later on. Harrison in the Spartans net made so many saves throughout the game. She had despite conceding 3 goals, she had a really impressive performance as well. So, yeah, it was a really good one. There was a couple of missed chances as well for Hibs. Ailey Adams hitting the post. Carla Boyce had a really close chance where she flicked the ball up and hit it on the turn, and it was an unbelievable save from Harrison to deny that one as well. I was just about off my seat ready to celebrate that one. But Dean Gibson, the manager, will be absolutely delighted with that performance.
No, 100%. I feel like Alexa Coyle is going to be a real player to watch in the league this season. I mean, there were times that a long ball was played up, Joelle Murray just kind of trying to clear it up towards Coyle, and I think his number 5 McMahon had maybe about 10, 15 yards on Alexa Coyle. And just because she's got such long legs, she takes such long strides, she caught her in a couple of seconds and was already past her out in the pass. So I feel like that's going to be a really good way for Hibs to create chances should they be up against a really good attacking team and have to sit in a bit more against some other teams this season. One of those teams they might have to do that against is Celtic, David, who, of course, went up to Aberdeen and won 4-2. A double for both Charlie Wellens and Chloe Craig. But it was a Kelly Clark own goal, and then Ailey Shore scored what could have potentially been a route back into the game with 4 minutes to go, but it wasn't to be in the end. How did you take this one in? Of course, you've kind of seen a bit of Aberdeen's team play in the last season or so. They've come up as champions, and it was a tough ride for them against Celtic in their oopening game. But how did you view this one?
Yeah, it was a professional performance and a professional win from Celtic's point of view. I mean, Celtic were really good. Farron Alonso spoke to him after the game yesterday, and he was a little bit disappointed that Celtic weren't exactly clinical in front of goal, and I kind of agree with what you were saying, because the likes of Izzy Atkinson and Tika Berry and even Wellens herself, Fran didn't exactly pinpoint the impetus on Wellens, but when you look at it from an overall attacking point of view, the strikers could have scored more goals. But I feel part of that is down to Gail Gilmore doing very well in the Aberdeen goal, because she produced some wonderful saves, and had it not been for that, I think Celtic would have scored 6 or 7 in the end. They were that good. But Aberdeen got to the game and had a bit more organisation about their play after the half-time. I think Emma Hunt and Gavin Beef said a few things to the Aberdeen players at interval. Aberdeen, they can take a lot of pride from their performance, but I'm also going to give them some constructive criticism on here. So I hope this show does not get slaughtered. But for the first goal, I actually noticed through Celtic's women's Twitter that Charlie Wellens is beside the Aberdeen centre-half Donna Patterson and strides along. And she gets in front of Broderick, beg your pardon, and then just shoots into the goal. So the ability to get from here to there can't be undermined. Terrific awareness from Wellens for that goal. And then the second goal, Jetta Penman, who I thought had a terrific game for Aberdeen yesterday. She does very well in terms of getting forward, but she does the defensive work. She reminds me a bit of Nathan Patterson, actually. But Chloe Craig took her goal really well. I mean, the ball came in from Atkinson and nobody picked up Chloe Craig, and from an extremely tight angle, Chloe Craig made it 2-1 to Celtic. But Aberdeen were always in the game, and I alluded to that Jetta Penman goal. Brilliant mentality for Aberdeen to get that equaliser. But the game got a bit tame after that, and substitutions came galore for both teams. But Celtic made it 3-1 thanks to Wellens. But Wellens, again, for her second goal, got to a terrific area. And that's the thing. The intricacies of getting into good areas can't be undermined from Charlie Williams' point of view. Just the ability to get clear of the Aberdeen defence, the ability to get into really good positions was key to her getting that brace yesterday. Aberdeen obviously pulled one back thanks to Ailey Shaw. But Chloe King makes it 4-2 and Celtic go back to Glasgow with the points.
No, absolutely. I think Celtic really seem to have got themselves a good find in Charlie Williams. I mean, the movement, as you said, was really, really good from her for both her goals. And I'm really excited to see how some of these players get on. Obviously, I didn't really see any of Aberdeen yesterday. Or last season, rather, I should say. So interested to see how they get on. Of course, it's a completely different league season. I mean, we've got 2 extra teams in the division, which means we've got 1 extra game a week, which is absolutely fantastic. More opportunities for fans of Scottish football to get involved with the women's game across various teams. Of course, Aberdeen coming up, Hamilton coming up, getting a really good opening weekend win against potential relegation rivals in Hearts women. A 93rd minute penalty rebound from Hannah Scott, having scored a penalty just over 15 minutes earlier to wrap up all 3 points in dramatic fashion. Was scenes in women's football, it's absolutely fantastic to see. And of course, Partick Thistle came up as well, but they didn't play this weekend due to a number of coronavirus concerns in their camp, leading to their match against Rangers being postponed. During the final game, Glasgow City, the champions, running out 6-0 winners against Motherwell at Petershill. Just again, scoring within the first minute through Priscilla Chinchilla. Fulatadulu, I don't want to make a mess of that name. Scoring twice, again, looking to be a real goal threat. And then a really, really good performance from Vital Katz in the midfield. I mean, looking to get in amongst the goals early doors with a couple of shots from range and scoring one just after the hour mark. I mean, City just look as relentless in this season as they have in seasons prior, don't they?
Yeah, City are looking really strong. I think Vital Katz got my player of the match in that game as well. They're definitely a side to watch this season. They've already started in Champions League as well. I'd highlight the goal that Claire Shine scored the other night. Absolutely unbelievable.
Unbelievable straight that was.
Unreal. I'd stop watching this and go and watch that because it was absolutely incredible. To come back to this though. But yeah, Glasgow City are definitely going to be a team, they're unstoppable just about, to be honest. They look really strong. Of course, Grant Scott is coming as the interim manager this season following Scott Booth's departure down south. So that'd be a really interesting change to see. But they've started the season just as they left last season, to be honest. They're a really, really strong side.
No, absolutely. And I think we have gone over time, so we are going to probably have to wrap things up there. We're going to be providing more coverage of the women's game across the season, as well as the men's sides and all the leagues and everywhere we can possibly get to it. On the state of Scottish football here at A State of Mind. We want to thank you all for watching us this evening. We're back every night this week at 6 p.m. I'm not sure what the plan is with the Scotland game tomorrow. I'm not going to be available for it, sadly, as I am taking myself to Somerset Park as a fan, which has been a rarity, and I've not actually been in Somerset Park as a fan for many moons, so very much looking forward to it. But whatever we do, put out tomorrow, make sure you tune in, because as always, it's going to be top chat from the team here at the State of Scottish Football. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for getting involved. Make sure to subscribe to the State of Mind YouTube channel. Thank you massively to Struan Garvey and David Smith for joining me and lending me their ears and opinions for tonight's chat. Back tomorrow at 6 and every other night this week. My name's Jack Donnelly. This has been the State of Scottish Football by A State of Mind. Thanks for watching once again, and we'll see you soon.